No.
Just want to talk real quick. When you guys get up in the morning, what do you guys do? First thing. Use the bathroom. Go to the gym. Couldn't tell. Forgot to put away your guns this morning, folks. No packing here in our class. You're right. First thing, everyone does the same thing. What's on your mirror?
Message to my husband.
Okay, what's the message say?
I love you.
Perfect. A great affirmation. Anyone else have anything on their mirror? I used to write in lipstick as well. You know, it was always the color, the shade that I got for Christmas on my stocking that Santa knew I never would wear. It was like ruby red or something, you know, because I'm a clear lip gloss girl. And so I would always write on my mirror. It was always for my son who was growing up. And as I went through the coaching program, when I was first in this business, I started to actually print out my affirmations. And it always started at the very earliest point of contact, where something could potentially happen that was going to railroad what was going to happen that day. Because that's really what happens is that, you know, things can happen throughout the day that not only change your attitude, but they also change your perspective and how you deal with things. And so affirmations are really critical in setting up how your day is going to be. Because at the end of the day, life is going to happen that you have no control over. The only thing that you have control over is how you react to it. And so we have to make sure that we're inputting as much positive information into your head at the earliest point of contact. You know, he mentioned he goes to the gym. That's part of his time blocking. He's very obviously committed to that process. And so that's one of his positive ways as well, is that we all know that when we, you know, work out, it releases endorphins, right? Endorphins. And so, that's positive energy that once again helps you with your reaction of what's going on throughout the day. So before I wanted to get into today, I wanted to talk a little bit about my affirmations. My affirmations are absolutely everywhere. They're on my mirror, they're in my car, they're in my phone, they're in my office. Anytime that I have to continually feed my head with positive information. So obviously I'm faith-based, some are, some not. It's all perfect, whatever it is for you. With me, I always say that, you know, God is my grace and that's all I need. Knowing and understanding that I am not in control is ultimately going to control my reaction to what's going on. And of course, my business affirmation is always that my life always moves forward through my desire to be successful. And I keep saying that over and over and over again, because those are the things that feed me positively as I grow my business. And of course, we say growing our business. So why do we do this business? So once again, the third thing that I do is I look at my dream board. Why am I doing this business? I know some of you guys were part of the class of Rev Up when I was in here, and I shared a little bit about what gets me going in the morning. Have you guys thought any more about why you do this business? Has anyone done a dream board yet?
Started
one?
Started one.
Okay, perfect. Is it a poster board or? Okay.
With the foam in it.
Oh yeah.
So that way it won't curve.
Sure. Yeah. And you know, it's kind of cool is that I did mine on poster board, and then I went to Office Depot and had it colored copied and put onto corrugated board as well. And that's, you know, how my dream board is. But then as time goes on, like I told you before, the Cadillac commercial came out, and all of a sudden I already made my dream board, so now it's like glued to the side of my corrugated, and so I add to it throughout time. So anyone else want to share? Okay, we got to figure out what we're doing. Seriously, I'm going to go always back to that, because if you don't know why you're doing this business and a strong, steadfast, positive commitment, when something happens, it's going to blow you out of the water. Okay?
I'm doing it so when my fiance and I start a family, we can have just one of us working. That's why I want to be more successful, so we don't feel we need the second income.
And that's huge, because if you know how to budget money, you're going to realize that having only one income probably is about a minimum of $100,000 just to live a quality of life. Because the average income, if you know, for this area is about 50,000 individually or 100,000 a couple. And so just to start off to be what we consider consistent with the quality of life of what's in this area, 100,000, that's a nice little chunk of change. And knowing and understanding what does 100,000 look like. And the only way you're going to know what that 100,000 looks like is if you completely break it down into the number scheme of how many calls is that a day. Okay? I know exactly I have to get 11 listings a month to be able to hit my goal of 375. You know, and of those 11, that's 3 a week. See a little buffer there, 3 times 4 is 12, and on a 5th week, I'm actually ahead of the game. But once again, I know that every 43 calls I get a lead. So I know how many prospecting calls I have to make a day. Why is it? Because I want to prospect and I love to prospect? No. But I want to have the things that are on my dream board to be able to accomplish. And that's why it's so critical that we know that. So, how are we doing with our checkpoint? Databases, where are we at? Are we still on the Christmas card address book, or have we actually put them on a spreadsheet that maybe potentially has grown into Edge? Where are we at?
I've put my phone into a Google spreadsheet to start my own, like my own Spear database.
Okay.
You know, we've talked about mine being a little different right now.
Sure. Anyone else? Right?
Still working on it. I did, I'm not good with Excel. I'm just trying to import. Well, I did a CSV file, try to import it to add to the database. Still having issues with it. I called, tell Williams, customer support or technical support, but they've been like not answering the phone because of training.
They actually, I think, know that it's your phone caller ID. They know that you're more intelligent than they are, like, oh no, not today.
They didn't say when they're gonna be back ready or anything, so I just keep calling.
So are you trying to, persistency and consistency,
Yeah.
are you trying to import into Edge?
Yes.
Okay, and from an Excel?
CSV.
CSV, yeah.
Should work.
What I did was, so I'm gonna do 2 different ones, but I started with the real comp, everybody that I have with real comp.
Okay.
So I had it saved, I'm trying to get it imported. So
When you pull it out of Real Comp, you know, it'll, whenever, you know how to select it, so it'll export.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you export, and however your computer works, if it's Windows 7, it'll pop up a little download in the corner. You got to open it up, and you have to make sure it's .csv. I know you said you've been saving it that way, but once you save it as .csv, like, it might make you do file save as. So whatever it opens up as, who cares? Don't worry about it. Just resave it as .csv.
So
And then
you guys can speak your technology language, because, you know, like I said, you're speaking Spanish or French or German to me right now, because I always have staff that are more talented than I am. That's why I'm so successful.
Same here. That's why.
So, and one of the things is if you're ever having trouble with that type of situation, we have people here that can help you through that. So if you aren't getting anywhere at corporate level, let's bring it down to local level and have somebody help you do that. Because we have mega agents here that have great support staff that I can reach out to as a resource for you guys if you have questions. Database-wise, I have 3 databases. Obviously, because of my background with the radio show, I have that separate from, you know, how I cultivate leads into my Sphere, which I've always used Top Producer, and now emerging with the Edge concept. And so it definitely is a learning curve, but that is your heart of your business. If you want to look at where you build your business, your database is that heart. And so you have to constantly keep blood pumping into that. So how many people have we added to our database, or are we just stuck on the conversion? Do we add anybody to the database this week?
I added a few.
What's a few?
7.
7? Okay.
And they were actually not in my database. They were not in my emails. It was kind of funny because it was triggered from Ken saying, look at your phone.
Right.
And I realized that there was about 15 people in my phone that I don't have in my Christmas list or my emails or any of that stuff. And they were, you know, service providers, you know, like mortgage and appraisals.
Vendors.
And, vendors. And I'm like, why have I not called these people?
Right, and ask
It
for
was
business.
a dumb moment, yes, I did, and I called them all, and I got their email, I got their contact information, and so now I have more, complete.
Anyone else? How many people did you add to your database? I had 56 last week. Okay, here comes the accountability. If I can add 56 people to my database, teach Ignite, manage a coaching program here at Keller Williams, and list and sell, and have a 3.5-year-old and 18-year-old that's graduating this year, there is no reason you have the same 24 hours in a day that I have, and there's no reason why you cannot be adding to your database. Okay? So why am I able to say that? I time block. I have a time in my schedule every single week where I know that I'm supposed to be adding to my database. That's one of my activities that I do, just as important as getting on the phones. So who got on the phones this week? So what happened on the phones?
I don't like getting on the phone.
You are a powerful real estate agent. Anybody that talks to you on the phone is going to be more educated than they ever have been once they get off. And you are truly a resource to that individual. And I say that because, do you guys know, there's like 90 trillion hits on Zillow and Trillia in a year? And do you know what they're all going there for?
Real estate,
To
information.
find out what their house is worth. Don't be afraid to get on the phones. People want this information and they'd rather know who specifically is going to give them that information than obviously what they're getting on the website. And then what's crazy about the website, it's not even correct. So they're like, you know what, just tell me, just give me a number. So not only are they not getting factual based information, not only are they not getting a live person. You know, people buy people before they ever buy a product or service. They want to talk to you. They want to have that relationship. Do you know how many times I get hung up on in a week?
Zero.
Never.
No.
Why? Because my database is big. They all have a relationship with me. They're all always looking forward to my call or my voicemail that I leave them because I'm always giving them some sort of information that's going to move their largest investment forward. If it's only finding out what their market's doing in their neighborhood, if it's only to find out that it's tax time and I'm giving them information, or if they closed 5 months ago and knew that the new PMI changed, the interest rate went down, to let them know this might be an opportunity to refinance. But once again, they're almost expecting my call. Why? Because I consistently and persistently call my database. So how many people did I call this week? Anyone want to guess? Close. 894 calls I made. Set up 3 listing appointments, and I pulled 6 buyers. Why? Because I personally made a commitment to once again know my numbers, look at my dream board, make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do to drive my business. Because at the end of the day, I want my retirement. I want time with my kids. I played 18 holes this Saturday and paid for the golf for my nephews. A little expensive, but I did it. Why? Because I had that opportunity to do that. You know, my nephews are very, very close to me. And living 2.5, 3 hours away, I probably wouldn't have gotten an opportunity if I wasn't on the phones, if I wasn't building my database, if I wasn't committed to my time blocking. You know, and so those are the powerful memories that I get to create because I do the things I need to do when I need to be doing them on my calendar. So, when you made your calls, where were you at? Where were you at?
I was in my office and I did actually have a couple good.
Wow!
It was terrible, but I called a couple past clients. I called, and one actually said, "Oh, did you see this house that's for sale? That it was in our neighborhood, or in her neighborhood that she moved to." And she said, "Oh, and by the way, there's going to be a house that's going to go up for sale. You might want to reach out to them. They're friends of mine. I've gotten to be good friends with them." And I said, "Well, you know, I might have a buyer for them, so she wants me to come look at her house because she just redid her kitchen." I said, "I'm going to come over there and you're going to bring me over to them and we're going to meet them. I'm going to give her my card." So it, you know, it's an
It opened the door.
Right.
Perfect.
So, and then the house that she told me about, the other house that's for sale, might be a good one for another buyer that I have. So it was good. It wasn't a non-productive call, but yeah. And then, you know, internet lead calls that I made.
When getting on the phone, the only person that's holding you back is you. So that's why affirmations are so critical. That's why the dream board is so critical. That's why time blocking is so critical, because at the end of the day, if you're the only person holding yourself back, then that's who you need to be focusing on, because it's not the clients. The clients are out there. Do you know that we will all run into business? And some of the businesses are probably not even connected. Do you know how many times I ran into a Keller Williams agent on a listing appointment? Very, very rarely. I mean, there's that much business out there. So one of the things that's so critical is that, you know, understanding and knowing that, you know, we as real estate agents have to know the value proposition that we offer to society, to consumers. You guys are all highly intelligent, caring people that want to help others with their largest investment. And once you know that and believe in it and understand it, your business will obviously begin to grow. And that's kind of keeping the head in the game. One of the things, I'm on page 8.4, you know, it talks about the mega agent sharing, which I don't know if you've had a lot of experience with the mega agents in Keller Williams. I've always surrounded myself with people that know more than me, that have more than me, that have done more business than I have. Why is that? Because they're probably doing some things that I need to be doing. Okay, so it really kind of holds me accountable. And actually talks right here is one of the keys to the success was setting clear expectations right from the start. In his script that I have found is the average buyer I've worked with looks at 7 homes before finding, or 6 homes before finding one. It's funny how I just added my number in there. 6 homes before finding a home. So I need to get that picture in my mind of exactly what they're looking for, and I should be able to take them to that point, okay? One of the things that when working with buyers, we're gonna kind of jump into this category is that working with buyers, you have an opportunity to sell one house to them. But how many houses is it going to take to find that one house? And understanding and knowing even at that point what your numbers are. Mine is 7. My average is 7 houses before I find a house. And that was never that way. When I first got in the business, I had marathons. I call them marathons. You know, 25, 35. You know, when I look back on before we had technology, we had these homes magazines. I don't know if you guys remember those. I'm probably aging myself. Is that they would, you remember those? They would bring them in and they would be pigtailed at the corner, and then they would circle the houses that they want. And so there was like 50 to 75 houses, of course, because they're only going off of one picture and a few sentences underneath it. And 9 times out of 10, if the agent was doing some sort of marketing campaign, they wouldn't put the price in. So, of course, what would end up happening?
They would have to call a lot of places.
We're out of their price range, because we always want more than what we can afford. It's just how we are as humans. And so it's so funny that I look back on that. Now with technology, with our phone app, I mean, have you guys actually downloaded the phone app, got it set up? Have you started promoting it to your database?
Yes.
You know, Lisa mentioned something, said that our house in our neighborhood is up for sale. I give my phone app to everybody in my database. Why? Because they love to lay awake at night in bed and with their phone. And they always pull up my phone app. Exactly. Why? Because they want to know what Sally and Joe Smith listed their house for down the street. Why? Because it impacts what? Your largest investment. You know, so why would you not be promoting that phone app? So now we have buyers that have so much technology at their hands that they are smarter, they are more intelligent, they know specifically what they want. So on top of having that, my number has gone down. But even at that point, if the buyer still controls that process, I always sell or show more homes before I sell them one home. Why is that? Anyone know? Because we as consumers get really hyper about looking at houses. We're shoppers. That's why we always say we have to get pre-approved before we go into any homes, okay? Because the pre-approval process isn't what's so exciting, it's the getting to the home portion that is. So people will tend to always want to look at homes that are probably out of their price range. So kind of that first step is that you need to make sure that you understand where that buyer is qualifying wise. And now the bank is going to tell them. One of the buyer leads I got during Ken Pozak's session. I called the title company and asked for business, and Francesca is a friend that responded to his Facebook post that, he had a client that was looking at buyers and wanting to service buyers, and so that's where that lead came to for me. Well, Francesca was very clear. She's like, Annette, I buyers with a $2,000 tax base is about $100,000. Well, she got approved for $155,000. Okay, so one approach would be to upsell her, obviously, for more money. But a better approach that I've always taken is more the conservative approach, which is, what are you comfortable paying?
Right.
And when I say what are you comfortable paying is that, have you done a budget? Have you looked at the other expenses that you want or need to pay throughout the month? And where does that fit in with what your housing budget is? Okay, so I'm very, very critical in regards to how we talk to buyers, at least on my team, because it's important to have somebody not living for their house. We want to make sure that they're being conservative in regards to that. That may not be your approach, but that personally has always been my approach. The second conversation, besides getting them pre-approved, is what they talk about right here on 8.6, is finding the homes. You have to gather the players in the game, obviously, which is you, the buyer, and the online property search sites. Here's some stats for you. 2011 NAR stats, 38% of all the buyers found their home through their agent. 37% found them online because agents are accessing homes through the MLS online. You can say that 75% of all the homes purchased were online. Now, looking at the 2011 NAR stat, keep in mind that 40% of buyers want their agent to help them find their home. But yet, who always calls you to see house on 432 Main Street? They do. Why is that? Because they're still going online before they call you. So as an agent, you have to understand that. The other thing that's amazing is they always send me Trillia and Zillow houses. And if you're not on your game and know what you're showing your buyer, 9 times out of 10, because that information is downloaded so far in the past, that those homes already have a pending offer, especially in a market where we're limited on inventory. It even puts those stats at a latter part of the process. So if you can educate your consumer, your buyer, or your client, or whatever you're going to call them, on the upfront as to what sites they should be going to, first place you'd be sending is where? Your phone app. That's live. And I always say that. Let me educate you on time, because there's 2 things that are going to happen, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. One, you're either going to blow yourself out of the marketplace because you're going to get overwhelmed with all the houses that are out there. Or 2, you're going to get frustrated because every house you send me, because of the resources of where you're going, are already going to be pending. So that's going to tell you that you're never going to be able to find a home. So let me help you through this process right off the bat, so we can use your time in the best possible way we can and find you that dream home. So we don't have to find one. Okay, so the first place is I want you to go to my phone app first. That's going to control probably over 90% of the market. The other ones are going to be for sale by owners. And if for some reason you are driving around and you see it for sale by owner, call me up. Give me the phone number and the address of where you saw that, and I'm going to do all the due diligence to make sure that the house will meet the qualifications of what we're looking for. That way you don't have to worry about, why do I educate them on for sale by owners?
So they don't go in.
Perfect. But also, guess what? I call for sale by owners. What a great opportunity now to be servicing my purchaser, my buyer, my client, but also building my business and prospecting, okay? And guess what? They're my lead generator. My actual purchaser is a lead generator for me. So when I go through the for sale by owners, and then the third thing I send is, if for some reason you feel that you just aren't getting the inventory that you want using the phone app, then go to realtor.com. Okay, because that truly is probably the closest direct download from our MLS. And it is supported by our associations. Ray, do you have a question?
You want to tell them to move in Michigan before realtor.com?
It just depends on, both are good websites. The only problem with movinmichigan.com is that it's a little bit longer of a website. The URL. So people know realtor and they know .com. And that's just the user-friendly portion of that URL is what I've gone to. It doesn't mean that Move in Michigan isn't a great place for them to go, but it is another option for them. Once again, have I mentioned Zillow yet? Have I mentioned Trillia yet?
No.
The next part of that conversation, the buyer's always like, well, I've gone to Zillow, or I've gone to Trillia. And that brings up my second script with them. Let me tell you a little bit about how to get current information. They don't do a direct download from our MLS, so the information is ladder. And you don't want information on houses that already went pending, because that's what's gonna probably get you very frustrated, because your dream house, or what you think at that time is your dream house, is not gonna have any access for you, and that's gonna get frustrating. So we'll just stay off of those sites, because these resources really are the places that control the inventory, and that's where we want you to be. I don't spend any energy on buyers that are sending me Zillow or Trillia. I never, ever, ever get a listing. Why? Because I educate them on the forefront. I made sure that they understand what does that mean to them in regards to resources. Next conversation, besides the price, is we talk about, what are the amenities? If the moon and the stars aligned and you could get your dream home, what does it look like? Okay, and we try to go through that usually on my buyer consultation that I have here at the office. Besides going through the contracts and the forms and things like that, we also go through kind of a dream building session. I can't promise you that I'm gonna get you a basement, 2-stall garage, a master suite, a walk-in closet, and really cool wooden blinds, but we can strive for that. We can try to get all we can in the price range that we have. I have always met my buyers here in the office first. Why is that? Someone wanna take a guess? Ray?
First, you take control, to kind of set the atmosphere for the working relationship. More control position, and I believe they look more at you as more of a professional. When you sit down with
Buyer wants that. Yeah, the buyer wants that. Go ahead.
Also, you want to vet them to make sure it's someone that you're willing to work with.
Good point.
Yeah.
It's a professional atmosphere.
How nice would it be is if you met a buyer and came in the room and they knew everything and you didn't like their personality. You actually could make a choice. I don't really need to do business with that person, instead of needing to do business with that person. Do you know the two different mindsets?
Right.
Needing to do business with someone means is that you're not meeting your financial expectations that you have set out for you. So you have to do business with this person. You have to figure out a way to do business with this person. I don't have that. I get to pick and choose who I do business with, including on my listings. If I walk in and I know we're not on the same page, I tell them, I'm just not able to help you, and there's a lot of other great agents out there that will be able to help you. I only take listings that I know I'm going to be able to sell. I don't take everything. I just don't. Why? Because I don't want to put a whole bunch of time into convincing them that my job position is to be there to help them. I'm the industry expert in this, and because of that, the process goes a lot smoother. So that is a great add-on to that. And I think we get into this because we have issues because we aren't as self-confident as we should be. And that's what happens is, like Ray said, we aren't taking the control like we need to. We aren't able to educate them because they're not sponge-like. And that's why having them here in the office, for one, it puts you on what? Your territory. You feel the most confident here. You're controlling your environment. We were talking about this morning about controlling environment. Anyone who goes into my class knows what my classes are like. They're definitely not boring, and they're definitely not warm. True? I love to tell stories, I love to entertain, I love to have a great time, and I do it by staying very cool. So once again, I'm very confident in Keller. Now, if we had this class at Big Boy, at the corner of 8 Mile and Haggerty, would it be the same experience?
No.
For one, they have a buffet. Okay, you guys would be sleeping on me, and I would probably be a little lethargic because I love breakfast. So, with that being said, you want to control your environment. So that's why it's so important to bring the buyer into your territory where you feel the most comfortable, most confident to be able to set down expectations that are not only setting the buyer up for success and what's best for them in this transaction, but also setting yourself up for success. Okay? Because the objective is to sell the house to them in the least amount of houses, correct? I mean, we're not tour guides, right? So we need to have a very strategic mindset going into this. The other thing is that the first time I meet with somebody, I get a pretty good feel. One of the talents that I was given is my gut. I've always gone off of that. And after I talk with you and find out by your body language, and I've taken classes obviously that have taught me that type of information. You may want to look at doing that as you progress in this industry. But you can get a pretty good feel on what people are looking for. If I don't get it at that meeting for some reason, I'll get it in the first time I ever meet with them going through the houses. Why is that? Because their body reaction. know, when they go into a master bedroom that's 10 by 11, and they didn't happen to mention that, you know, larger bedrooms, say the king-size bed, or the, you know, their furniture is large, you know, if I didn't pick that up on the first meeting, guess what? When we walk in that small bedroom, you're gonna know instantly. Either they're in and out quickly, or they're gonna make some sort of comment. And so you know the next time you're with them to show houses, or the next house you go into that day, you're gonna know instantly if it's even gonna be worth going in. And I've gone into houses, and this is one of the things, I don't wanna jump ahead, but my first time I'm in the house with them, I set the parameters with them right off. I'm like, this isn't personal. We don't have to please the seller, and you don't have to please me. If it doesn't feel right, smell like, look right, and you don't want to go in, we don't go in. We get past the threshold, and you see that the kitchen and the living room isn't the floor plan you want, we go right back out. We don't have to tour the entire home. Why is that? Time is money. Not only their time, but your time, honestly. I mean, to set up 5 or 6 houses in your first visit, that's a good 2 hours, especially if you're, you know, if you're in a city environment or a neighborhood, you can probably pop it out in about an hour, depending on how strategic you are and the mindset that you focus on that buyer. But at the end of the day, it's still 2 hours. And we're not even talking about the preliminary stuff that got you to that appointment. We're just talking about getting into the homes. And so I think it's really important to know, you know, and let the buyer know that there's nothing personal. You know, we pick these houses, they may not work out for us. If there's something you don't like about it, let's just move on. Because all we need to do is find one house for you. And we need to find that one house that gives you that aha moment. And no matter what you say, every single purchaser I've ever had has that aha moment. They have maybe preliminary aha moments, because we've all gone through that, where they've lost, you know, a house in a bidding environment. But I always say to them, even in the bidding environment, is that I've never sat at a closing table where the buyer said to me, I cannot believe I'm buying this house. It's always been, I can't believe I would have bought any of those other houses prior to this. So that's kind of that conversations that I have with them in that process, depending on what the market is. So going back to the preliminary is that, why do we have that is we want to make sure that we really focus on what the buyer's looking at. And 8.10, 8-10, it talks about selection of property. How many of you had the call, I only want to buy REO?
Yeah.
Why do they say that? Why?
They won't have one.
I want a good deal. I want their dollar to be stretched more than what it normally is. Do you know how much of the market's REO now?
8%. It's like nothing.
You said 8%. It's a really small portion. So anyone want to share a script that they've used with the buyer that says that?
I just tell them to say, you know, I don't know when you last were looking to buy a home, but we are less than 10% in REOs, and ones that are there, the banks are holding on to with as much money as private owners are saying. So the odds of trying to make the money that you think you are is slim to none. And then I always offer to send them actual, you know, facts and numbers and all that as an email, just so I can tell them, and also they can see it.
Perfect. When should that question come up in the timeline of finding a house?
Buyer
In the
consultation.
buyer consultation.
Buyer consultation. That's when you're pulling that out, okay? And usually that comes during the pre-approval process, or if they're cash. I love to work with cash buyers.
If they're an FHA buyer,
I'm sorry?
so generally if they're an FHA buyer, good chance that the house REO won't even be listed.
Or you have to have the 203K conversation with them, which 203K is a great product, but there is some hidden things in that that people aren't always aware of, which one of them is obviously, you know, the house has to appraise, acquisition plus repairs, you know, as to what the house is worth on the loan amount. The other thing is that, you know, 203K that's really important to understand is that the purchaser doesn't get the escrow up front. They only get half of it. And the other half is 30 days after the final inspection when the work is done. And so it's important to have that conversation, obviously, during the buyer consultation, because the objective is to stick the buyer in the best program for them, not only cash or loan, but as well as the product of the loan. You know, if they're gonna be FHA, we gotta talk about that. There's some requirements with FHA that's a little bit different than conventional. And as well as we have to talk about the bidding process during our buyer consultation. You know, we wanna set you up to be what?
Successful.
The most powerful buyer on the marketplace. And how do we do that? By putting them in the best product that's gonna be there. So if they can qualify for conventional financing, if you're a seller and you're looking at 5 offers, and you have a conventional buyer, who are you gonna go with, conventional or FHA?
No, what would you say, I mean, now with that, Ross and Quicken will do 3% conventional, I mean, does that make a conventional less than a 3.5% FHA, or, I mean, FHA, you've got the extra, like on word right now, it's too early. But obviously, there's more that they have to do with the FHA.
Repairs.
The repairs and then the extra inspections and all that.
FHA, when looking at negotiating power, and this is what I tell my sellers when we have multiple offers on my listings, is I put them in piles. I have cash, conventional, FHA, kind of the food chain of the most powerful offers that are out there. And if I'm representing the buyer, I always want to make sure I'm on the left-hand side of that pile, which is either the cash or the conventional. Why is that? Because the FHA, there's usually costs that are incurred by the seller, okay? And there's 2 phases to that. One is the inspection period, which we all know that buyers are gonna probably have a house inspection, or as a realtor, I want you to strongly suggest that they have an inspection. And we're gonna get into a little bit more about that later, is that, is then the FHA appraisal. Okay, and especially coming out of the housing crisis, FHA appraisers are a little bit more conservative on value than our conventional appraisers. And I've noticed that over and over again. So if you have a house that may be kind of at that, you know, neighborhood that somewhat is rebound, but because it's hodgepodge of housing styles, you could potentially run into an appraisal issue on an FHA because they're more restrictive. So once again, where does that put your buyer? Puts them in a vulnerable position compared to like a conventional purchaser. And so we always want to make sure that we're setting our buyer up. Now, of course, we have people that they have to go FHA because of medical bills. And that's the last thing, the difference between conventional and FHA is that FHA is a little bit more open to credit issues. So, you know, as being a seller and representing sellers, I tell them, you know, this may not be a solid buyer that you may think of in conventional, because conventional doesn't accept anyone that has medical issues, you know, billing over 90 days, things like that. Also, the credit score is usually 640 for FHA, and conventional is usually a little bit higher. And so that kind of puts you in that food chain of products. You know, VA is a great product, no question about it. You know, 0 down, 0 closing costs, and it's the veterans. But as a seller, if I'm representing the seller, it might not always be the offer that we're going to choose over the other ones. Because once again, VA has a system of, you know, inspections with their appraisals. So there may be some costs incurred, but that doesn't mean your offer is not going to get accepted. That just means if your buyer is in a more vulnerable position, then you need to set them up with what is best about them, okay? So one of the things that's best about is my EMDs are much higher for my FHA purchasers or my VA purchasers. A higher EMD is going to show more commitment to the seller in the process, even though it really isn't. Seriously, your EMD is refundable on your contingencies.
Right.
So by setting that purchaser up with the more positive attributes of them, in turn will work positively for them where they're the most vulnerable. Do you guys follow me on this? So higher EMDs. Go ahead, Ray.
Question. I remember when I started, when going offers to buyers, we used to like literally present offers to the seller, set up an appointment with the agent and the seller, present the offer.
I know you're shy, but I'm a little deaf. You're gonna have to speak a little louder.
Well, I remember when I first started real estate, we used to, I was taught that we want to get in front of the
Try no
seller.
side conversations, guys.
We want to get in front of the seller when our buyer's offer. I see that that's kind of gone by the wayside when the market changed.
Well, you know, it just
Is that
depends.
appropriate anymore?
Well, it's not that it's not appropriate, I'm hoping that we're policing our industry a little bit better, that we don't have to worry about that, because I think that the #1 reason to do that is because we didn't trust the listing agent. I mean, that was the reason why I was doing it back then. The second thing is that I've overcome that with my cover sheet. I do a cover sheet on all my offers with my purchasers. It tells their story. I've even started doing some video work, you know, where I'll tell, you know, we're writing a purchase contract. I'm like, hey guys, let's do a quick 30-second video and tell the seller why you love their house. Just investment. Do you not think of the impact? Think about this a second. The impact of Sally and Joe Smith that are selling their house. They've raised their kids here and they're downsizing into a condo. All the memories they have in that house. They get an offer. Let's just say it's $1,500 less than the highest priced offer. But they get a video that says, we absolutely love your house. We're expecting our first baby. We're so excited for the school system. What's that going to do during negotiations?
It's emotion. Emotion sells.
But I have an FHA 3.5% down purchaser. $1,500 less than the conventional offer.
It doesn't matter, they want to raise their family there just like you did.
Relatability. I'm getting goose pimples just talking about it. Why? Not because it's 51 degrees in here, but because seriously, as a seller, it's an emotional aspect of selling their home. And that $1,500 means absolutely nothing. The FHA, just have did you call the lender and find out how secure these buyers are? That may be the only comment that they make. And if it's a good selling agent, they've already talked to all the lenders. Okay, so they already know that my purchasers are strong, even though they're FHA, they're strong purchasers. But that emotional value is huge. So I'm seeing that more and more. I don't see it as often as I would like to see, but video really kind of is coming into play as being a buyer's agent, because you really are setting that that client up.
Use your phone, just tap in the quick.
Yep. Chris Dayton was here. Did he share his video experience? Okay, with his purchasers that were just fired up in the car and they had music playing in and stuff, and it was just really kind of it wasn't even planned. It just kind of happened, you know, and it made the difference. It really did. So this isn't original. This is what we're kind of moving to with technology. And so depending on, you know, if your buyers are comfortable, some buyers aren't. You know, we don't want to put any buyers in a position, but if you feel that they are kind of enthusiastic and you know there's multiple offers on the table, you may want to mention it to them, you know, and see if that's an opportunity. But once again, all you're trying to do is play on the best attributes of your purchasers, so it puts them in the best light, you know, when presenting your offer. Okay. On 8-14, it talks about touring the home. Now, I love this. This is like very simple stuff, but I think it's really important to kind of focus in on. So now we've met with them, we're gonna go through our first set of houses. We get all the lockbox codes, or if the seller's gonna be there, which is always a great opportunity. You know, it's very awkward, but I want you guys to realize if the seller's home, this actually is a good thing. Because guess what? Shakedown! We work for the buyer. If their listing agent did not tell them that that puts them in a vulnerable position, I'm sorry, I work for the buyer. I just do. And as a seller, we love to talk about our house. I've never sold my personal residence. Do you know why? My personality does not allow me to be a very good seller. And I know that. I will always list my house with a top agent. Because I know, you know, I'm emotionally attached to this. I'm not going to get as much money if it's my house, you know, and so I know that. So, so going through touring the house aspect with all the lockbox codes, obviously this is basic stuff, but you guys use a GPS and you know, geographically place the houses for time efficiency, so the ones that are next to each other type of thing. Has anyone got any frustration with other agents about like 1 hour spans versus 2 hour spans? Have you guys gotten any calls with that? Okay. So if I'm showing 5 houses and they're spread out, like let's say I'm in Clarkston, or let's say I'm in, you know, Beck Road out there area, it takes a little bit to get to the houses. So if I got 5 houses and it's a 15 to 20 minute drive between the two of them, if I'm going from Commerce to Nova, you could end up in a 2 hour window. I'm noticing a lot of agents are now only having like some hour restrictions. If that's the case, it's smarter to look at your map and be agent friendly, and this is the only reason why I tell you this, is just be agent friendly, because it's not the listing agent that's asking for this, it's usually the seller. And so if that happens to be the house that your buyers want to put an offer in, they're going to remember who showed it. I have never sat in presenting an offer appointment with my sellers where they haven't said, who is the agent? And what do? They always whip out the business cards that you left behind. Because they're trying to put who and who together. And if you forgot to, and I'm jumping ahead again, but if you forgot to turn off the light or forgot to lock the door, they remember everything. Okay, so going into that first step across the threshold, it's really important that when you're setting up those appointments that you remember that. Yes, I know our time is valuable, but we also want to be compassionate for the seller as well, because that is your first impression of them if you decide to write an offer on the house. They're going to remember that Annette Compo came in here. And that includes as well as if you went into a house but you didn't go in because for some reason they didn't like the neighborhood and they haven't done a drive-by yet, you know, at least walk into the house and put your business card. Because they need to know that you were there. Okay, they took the time to set that house up to show. You don't know at one point when you're going to come across that seller again. It may be an orphan seller 5 years from now. You don't know that. You know, let's say that seller sold their house, bought something else, and now they're reselling their new place, and they call you for a listing presentation. You don't know that. You know, I've had sellers that have gone to listing presentations where I just randomly they had called me to list their house. I'm like, how'd you hear about me? And obviously you can see what I've accomplished in my career. So obviously I always think it's either the radio or because I've been in the business long enough. But there's been a couple of times where I said, well, you showed my house. I'm like, whoa. They don't forget anything. They keep those cards. So it's a good opportunity. Once again, you don't know what's going to be going on in the future with that client who may not even be your client. So once again, always represent yourself in the best light you possibly can. So you get all your instructions for your houses. I always love the instructions, and this is where I get to tell my fun story. We have animals. Have you guys got that one yet?
Yeah.
Don't let the dog out, the cat out. You know, now obviously as a listing agent, I take a different hat with that. You'll never call one of my listings and I have the response, be careful, don't let the cat out. Because my sellers are educated to know that even though Fido and Fluffy are your family or your kids, they're not your selling real estate agent. So having them in the house is not a good thing. It just isn't. So with some listing agents, they are concerned, they are fun people, and so you're going to run into that. So about 15 years ago, I got a confirmation on a showing that said, we have 3 cats. Don't let any of them, they're all indoor cats. Don't let them out. So I go in this thinking, okay, here we go, 3 cats. So I get to the front door and I'm telling my clients, right, everyone stay behind me. And I got 3 cats, let me get them out from the door, you know. And so I'm like, just give me a second. So I do the code and I get in the house. I'm like, cats, 1, 2, 3 head count, right? So I get in the house, get the clients in the house, we go through the house, we're going, I'm like, you guys go ahead and go out. I'm gonna make sure the cats are here, you know, and lock up the house. So I do the head count right before I shut the door, and I swear I counted 3 cats. I swear I counted 3 cats. I mean, how hard is it to count 1, 2, 3? Well, there's a new definition of counting 1, 2, 3. So I turn to shut the door, and here is the white Angora on the porch, just looking at me.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, oh, goodness, what is going to happen now? So I'm like, here, kitty, kitty. I'm not a cat lover, just FYI. And you know, and it's not, I mean, if you guys are cat lovers, God bless you. You have kind, more compassionate heart than I do. I just don't enjoy cats. I just don't. And so I'm like, here, kitty, kitty. You know darn well that cat knew I was not a cat lover. They can sense that. I've heard that. Right. Exactly. They make that funny sound. It scared the little bejeebies out of me. But I'm not going to back down. I'm like, get in the house. So I finally, after climbing through the bushes and chasing the cat all over the front yard, which I'm thinking, boy, what if we had technology then? This would have been an awesome YouTube video. I totally could have used it and marketed it on a real estate channel or something. So I get the cat in the house, get it locked up. I'm like, okay, on to the next house. Look at my notes, no more cats, no more dogs, no more anything. This will be okay. So I get a call from the agent. No, I just want to, you know, find out how your showing went. And I said, oh my gosh, this cat thing. You know, of course, being the person that I am, I talk about it. I'm like, I almost lost one of the cats. And she said, well, that's kind of funny. She said, because when the sellers came home, they called me, they had 4 cats.
Oh!
I was not laughing, because all I'm thinking is that I just took an outdoor cat and put him inside with 3 other cats that live in the house. I mean, I have these visuals of, cats hanging from the drapes and, I mean, can you imagine what potentially could have happened in that scenario? But nothing happened, thank goodness. But a good experience for me to share with all of you guys that seriously, we have to be very conscious. But at the time, when you're going through all these houses and you have 5 houses to get through and you have 2 hours to get through it, and you've got a listing agent that only gave you an hour window and blah, 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 what would have happened, if that cat, the 4th cat I put in the house would have tore up the house? Whose responsibility would that have been?
Or if it was the 3rd cat and you left it outside.
Well, I would have preferred that scenario than the 4th cat in the house. Thank goodness something happened. But seriously, I share that story and we laugh about it all the time. And every time I go to a house that has cats, I always tell the story to my clients because it's a funny story. But it is true. We have to be conscious of what's going on in our surroundings. So the other thing is that we as agents have a role when we're in the house, and the role is not to point out the defects of the house. Okay, let them explore the house, let them see the house for what it is first. The defects come after or during inspection period, because I think a lot of times we go in there as the expert and we're like, oh, let's go check out the plumbing. You know what I mean? We're not there to check out the plumbing. Okay, they're not going to fall in love, and you potentially could alter their first experience of potentially their dream home. So we just want to make sure that when we keep ourselves in that role of, we're not in an inspection period of time when we're going through these houses. We are in, is it the right floor plan? Is it the design that they like? Is it, because some people, they tell me, I don't want to buy a quad. People don't like quads, So they already have a clear picture of what they want. And I always try this because this is what ends up happening is they tell me I only want a ranch. And then I throw a tri-level in. They don't want a tri-level, they want a ranch. People that want ranches want ranches. And I learned that I'm a ranch girl. I love brick sprawling ranchers. The ones in Southfield with the big yards, front and back. I mean, I love those. So if you try to put me in a quad or a tri, I'm gonna get upset. So listen, that's why we have 2 of these and 1 of this. And that's kind of that critical point of when you're building out building that relationship. Because when you're in the house, you want to point out the benefits, not the features as well. And so it kind of goes through on 8-1 about preparing to show the homes, knowing the route, the information sheets. I mean, what do you guys bring when you go show houses? Go ahead.
I bring the MLS full detail sheet, so it has days on market and all of that, because they always ask me that, how long has it been on the market. I include an overview of the recent sales in the neighborhood, so I pull that up. So if they're really interested, they can see how the value falls. I sometimes include the seller's disclosures if they seem really interested about it, to have it there. That's a lot of paper. And then I click everything together so they each have a packet so they can look at it in the car between the showings.
So she's not a tree hugger.
Well,
Right.
But you know what? What she has laid out for you is that she has an executed plan, a system of how she does it every single time. That's really critical, because she probably, if you ask her what her numbers are, what are your numbers when you show buyers? How many houses on average do you show before you sell?
I would say probably 10.
Okay, so that's a pretty good number. I mean, 10 homes, that's actually, you're talking about 2 appointments, that's it. Take away the buyer consultation, but just 2 days, okay? I know agents that I'll be talking to them 4 weeks into the process, and I'll say, so are you guys under contract? And they'll go, oh no, we're going out this weekend. Well, that only works, let's say they only work, they can only go on the weekends. Imagine 4 Saturdays or 4 Sundays, 2 hours. You start racking up some hours. And I don't know if you've ever done this before, but when I sell to a buyer, I know how much time I've invested in them, and I divide it by the commission, I divide it by the hours.
That's smart.
You know why I do that? Because I need to know my stats. Because I need to improve. No different than it takes me 43 calls before I get a lead. If I'm running 55, 62, 79, I gotta check out my scripts. I gotta check on my environment that I'm calling. I gotta check on the things that control my numbers. So why would you not do that with your buyers? Seriously. Because if you're showing them 4, 5, 6 weeks out and you still haven't found them something, they're gonna get frustrated as well. All they wanna do is know where they're moving to. A great story is my son, and he was picking schools. And if you know or you're close to me, I did the Midwest in 60 days. Seriously, the Midwest, just about every school for football in 60 days. And I was like, can you pick a school already? It was fun the first 2 weeks, but man, I'm into Thursday and Friday, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th week, But he was very strategic. He had a plan of action in place, but he was blowing me out of the water. So it kind of gave me a good perspective of our clients, Unfortunately, it wasn't my son's job to pacify his mom. I'm just antsy, But with our clients, it's our job to do what's best for them, okay? But in turn, also make business decisions that's good for us. So you want to make sure you know your numbers so that way you're catering to their needs, but as well as making good business decisions. Comment?
My comment and question for you is, the times when I've had the marathon sessions with people, and so believe me, it happens, is because I haven't pre-qualified them up front, and I am showing a B buyer on weekends and on my evenings properties that I probably should have put them on pause and not been out showing. So my question is, how do we ensure that we're only working with A buyers? Because those buyers are the ones that are on a mission, they want to find something, and they're going to do it in relatively short order.
My niece is a new Keller Williams agent in Grand Rapids. So she called me 3 weeks ago and was telling me that she's working with her first buyer. And I said, so how's that going? She says, we've seen 10 houses. They still haven't found one. I said, well, how did you start the process? And so she told me there was no consultation involved. She didn't have a pre-approval letter yet. Okay. So I said to her, I said, did you miss one of the training classes at Keller Williams? Because I know the Keller Williams system. Well, of course, she didn't think it was important. Okay? And I shared this story with you, not just to support the buyer consultation and how you feel the water, the temperature of your buyer's, commitment to the process as well. But also to say that, she's trying to recreate the wheel. Now, she's a very successful agent now in the process, and she's gotten some deals underneath her belt, but she's conformed to the system. But Tracy brings up a valid point is, how do we test the waters of the commitment of the buyer? Well, one of the ways we do that is the pre-approval process as well. Her buyer was not willing to go through the pre-approval process. I'll go through it when I find the house, okay? Real quick, always go with a buyer with a pre-approval. Do not ever show anyone, or if they say we're cash, if you're too afraid to ask for proof of funds, that is your first way of feeling the waters of their commitment level. They want to just see this one house, because you're going to get it. I don't want to come in and see you. I just want to see this one house. I'm sorry, that's not how I operate. It's the seller's requirement that I sit down with, find out if you're pre-approved cash purchaser. I mean, sometimes it's hard to get somebody, to get in here to do a consultation, because they just want to see that one house. But understand, if they just want to see that one house, they're not going to continue to do business with you. They just aren't. And it's not going to be worth the time and energy that you put into it. Because honestly, we talked about, 5 to 10 houses on a good qualified agent that understands the concept of the timeline, 5 to 10, which is 2 days of showing houses. We haven't got into the time that you put into setting them up. We haven't added in the time for the buyer consultation, and we didn't add any time in to actually pre-qualifying or pre-approving them with the time with the lender yet as well, because you have to spend time with the lender too to get them situated, find out what products they're in and stuff like that. I mean, you're looking at, before you ever even get on the road to see the first house, you've got probably a good 4 to 5 hours into this process before you ever even get into the first threshold of a house. Go ahead.
What if they're cash buyers? Do you ask for proof of funds or?
All day long, yes. And there's a couple reasons for that. I do not show houses on a call. Like if you take floor calls or sign calls and they just want to go out to the house, well, just meet me at the house. There's also a safety issue there too. Right. Not that a copy of their bank statement is going to set you up for more safety. you know, but it's going to at least screen it a little bit more for you. If someone sends me a bank statement, it's one more way that I know that I'm probably gonna be safe in that house with a person I haven't met yet in this office. So yeah, cash buyers, I don't walk out that door unless I have a copy of proof of funds. So, and if they're like, oh, it's my bank account, well, you know what? Black out the numbers. I don't want your account, I just wanted to see that it's you and it's that person.
People say that, but when you write a check, your account doesn't go on.
I get it.
Do you get a bank statement, or do you get a letter from anything?
Yeah, as long as it's, you know, their account, yeah. Because sometimes people confidentially wise, they just want to go to the branch manager and get a letter that says X amount, I have X amount to cover transaction to
That's what Pete was saying
150,000.
too, is like he likes to
Yeah.
get instead of a bank statement, because a bank statement does not really quite validate anything. I mean, by the time you actually do something, they're gonna have taken all the money out of it. But a letter from the bank manager, he said, is much more, and then he calls the bank manager and says, just confirms that it was written by him, that it was not like written by somebody else. And then he feels like this is solid enough for cash.
Great idea, no question. Just depends on what you're comfortable doing and stuff like that. How much time you want to invest. With me, I mean, I get as much information as I possibly can without offending them, you know, but yet still making sure I'm safe, make sure my time is safe, everything is safe. And it's not just about safety, it's about my time too, because my time is valuable. You know, I'm not a $20 an hour girl, I'm not even a $100 girl. You know, and that's the biggest thing I always tell people is that, do you know how much you're worth? You know, I'm worth about $1,000 an hour. That's when I sell real estate, that's what I make. Doesn't matter if I'm talking to their lender, doesn't matter if I'm out showing houses, doesn't matter if I'm sitting on a listing appointment. And I act that way. The value proposition is there for me because I'm able to do that. So we just want to get you to that level where you feel confident enough that, you know, you're comfortable in your own skin, that you know, and you're servicing the client better too. Because the client wants to work with an industry expert. That's why they do it. I don't know if you guys read the NAR stats, but the buyers and sellers that are out there would like to work with someone for a lifetime. Not just one transaction. They'd like to know who they're working with. They want to be able to know that if they have a mortgage question, they can call their real estate agent, not their mortgage person. They want to call their real estate agent for that information. You know, because you guys are with them the most. I went to a closing the other day, and it was the first time I actually had a lender at the closing. I was like, whoa, I'm not used to this. This is like my territory, you know, but it was kind of cool to have them there, you know. And I was like, I'm totally impressed, because a lot of the mortgage lenders even stopped going to closings now. So what does that do for us? It gives us another opportunity to, once again, be that industry expert that the client, you know, would like you to be. People, my clients, when they remodel their kitchen, they call me because I have really good vendors that I can give to them at cost savings. And why do they know that? Because I set them up for that relationship with me in the forefront. No, I don't want to know when they're remodeling their kitchen, but I do want to know what their plans are with their house. Okay, so it's not the kitchen remodel I want, it's what I want to know, that they're investing in their real estate. Because what does that tell me? Why are you doing it? Do you know how much value is going to be added to it? And even if they're just doing it for their own quality of life, it gives me one more opportunity to ask them, hey, by the way, the best compliment from you is someone that you happen to know, friends, family, people in your neighborhood, places that you work, that might be thinking about listing or selling their home. Another opportunity to build my database, to prospect, things like that. So, you know, I can't focus enough on building that relationship with the client, because we in this industry, I call them drive-by clients, you know, which means we list their house, we sell it, and we're gone. Or we consult with them, sell them a house, and we're gone. And we never call them again, and we orphan them. You know, why would we do all this work to get someone to trust us and then do nothing with that relationship, only to turn around and do what? Build another relationship and spend the time to build another relationship to have them get to that level of trust.
Instead of cultivating.
Yeah, you know, it just amazes me that our industry doesn't do a more systematic approach. Here at Keller Williams, we teach them. You know, why? Because we're doing the work already. Why would we not maximize the relationship? Not only is it good for the client, but it's good for our business. It's good business decisions. So, recognizing buyer signals as we tour the home, 8-16. These are some things, obviously, body language and facial expressions we've talked about. Facial expressions are huge. especially when they start talking about, boy, we can see where the couch would go. And it's funny because I always love to talk about the good old days. I'm like the one who always talks about, well, I used to walk to elementary school when the snow was up to my waist. And, you know, so I always talk about the good old days with real estate because it puts into perspective how easy it is to sell real estate today. I mean, now the comments in the living room is that what wall do we put the TV on? I was so odd for me because we used to have a council TV and entertainment center, and you know, or we'd have to wonder if there was an entertainment center, if the carpeting was under the entertainment center or not, because the entertainment center was so big, you know. So those things have kind of gone to the wayside. Now it's what wall do we put the TV on? You know, the brackets obviously stay because they're bolted to the wall. You know, those are now the comments that, you know, we're hearing as we go. But, you know, placing furniture, when they start comparing houses, this is a really good indication. Tracy does a great job. You know, she invests in the values prior to go, especially if they've given her the verbal support that you hear this is my dream home. How can you know it's your dream home when you haven't gone inside yet? Well, if you've gone through any of Corinne's class, she taught a class here on taking pictures, you can actually know if you want to be in her houses because her house pictures are amazing. And now with technology, you can see 21 to 25 pictures of a house before you walk in, but you still have to get there. You still have to get there to see, because there's always something that might not be or might kill the deal because of the kitchen not being as open as you thought it was or not as big as the pictures may have represented themselves to be. So, but once again, one of the comments that buyers will mention when they're in the house, if they start talking about paint color or, you know, boy, if they're expecting a baby, nurseries, will it fit the crib in it, stuff like that. Those are all great comments to say, okay, you know what, we want to spend a little bit more time here. And what's nice is, once again, we're listening and not talking. Why? Because if we were in that house and I'm like ushering them up because I got 4 more houses to show and I only got an hour because then my next buyer's wrapped up in the next appointment and they're talking about paint colors, what's going to happen?
Right.
Exactly. You know, they're going to get frustrated. Also, you may kill the deal, you know, because you may not have to be showing any more houses. Or after this day, you get through those 4 or 5 houses, they're going to be writing on this house that they're talking about what color the paint needs to be in the master bedroom. Or another thing that is kind of cool that I do is if I have a buyer that I'm on the second day of houses with, and I always put the first day winner on the second day. So if I show 5 houses and one of them was one that we kind of sat down furniture and kind of talked about, I always reschedule that in my second day. At that point, I've done some creative stuff. Like I'll have a picture of them, especially with Facebook, you know, and I'll get it framed in a really nice frame. And I'll get to the house that I have on the second. It'll be the first house that I meet them at. The second day is the first house from the previous day. I hope I explained this correctly.
Yes.
And I'll have that picture in the living room. On the table, the end table, the lamp and stuff. And so they walk in and they see the picture of themselves on the stand in the living room. It's a connection for them, you know. And I don't do that only on the special buyers, because it might freak somebody out a little bit thinking that Compo's a stalker. But, you know, it's just one of those extra touches that I do. And why do I do that? For one, it bridges them to the house, which makes their commitment a whole lot easier on the second day. I'm not striving to spend third day. If I want to spend time with you because I like you as a client, let's go out for dinner. We don't need to go through 5 more houses, you know? So I want to do those extra things that helps them through that emotional aspect of connecting with the house. It works for me really, really well, and it always has, because it bridges. And I'm not doing that in a house I don't like. I mean, they really had to have knocked our socks off
Right.
the first time we had gone through it. Now we're going through it a second time on the second visit because they weren't quite ready. And I just did this 2 weeks ago, and I share this with you because why it was so important is that first time out we found our dream home, #1 house we walked into. Guess what happens? Buyers don't believe it's their dream home because it was the first house they walked into.
Right.
Could not, and all the experience that I have in this business showing buyers, get them through that. I couldn't get them through it. They were not willing to rent the house. That house had 9 offers. It was so cute. And it was in the right price range, $100,000. I mean, it's tough to find a nice, cute to walk in, even the really awesome sinks now that they have with this spigot and the
Yeah.
sink design's a little bit
Glass
different, it's
wood.
crystallized. For $100,000, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys need to buy this today. But that value proposition, they were nervous because it was the first house they went into. So I'm like, okay, we're meeting tomorrow morning, this is the night. So I called the agent, and I said, they want the house, and my buyers are strong, they're solid, they'll come in high with a good EMD, they love this house, but it's their first house, so I need to get them through tomorrow morning when I show them more houses. It's gonna be the first house. I got their picture off of Facebook, got an expensive frame, a really nice frame, because that's what's part of the whole, not talking about the dollar store special here, guys. You know, it's a $50 crystallized frame that I have, I put their picture and I put it on, they were an offer that day. They had that connection with that house, and that's what it took to get them to that point. Without the picture, would it have worked? Maybe, but why gamble? I mean, not only is it doing them a service because this is their dream home and they want this house, but they are emotionally ready for that because it's their first time home buyers. They've never bought a house before. What are the chances that we're going to walk into their dream home on house one? It happens though, so take that into account, you know, when you're going through this. Okay, 8.17. I love objections. Why? Because they always teach me how to deal with it in the future. And what's amazing about objections is usually it's because the buyer is not to the point mentally to make these decisions. Okay, that's a big yawn. Does the temperature have to go down a couple more degrees?
Oh, please no.
My nose is frozen.
My nose is cold.
I'm like a penguin here.
If you guys want to, you can turn up the heat. I'm fine with that if it's that bad. It hasn't turned off though, that's what's crazy. I think I'm trying to AC my office upstairs so when I go up there I'm more comfortable, so I do thank you. So some objections. We love it, but we haven't seen enough properties yet. We just talked about that. Great story I shared with you about how to kind of overcome that. We really want a formal dining room. This is actually a pretty good objection that I hear quite often. But once again, is it in the must-haves? And that's part of the buyer consultation, is you should not be in a house without a formal dining room if they ask if that was one of their must-haves. We will not buy without a basement. Don't think that you're gonna convince them to buy a house without a basement.
Right.
If they're basement people, they want a basement. Why? It's not for the functionality of the house, it's because they want a basement. They have probably storage. You haven't been to their house. You don't know. They may have, you know, 5 rows of red and green Christmas totes.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know that. A house without a basement, where are they putting that stuff? You know, they better have a big garage. You know, but seriously, so listen to them. So, and you can't convince them if they want a basement or a garage, or if the garage is attached. That's a really big thing. It's really hard. If you do your buyer consultation up front and you talk about those features that are really critical, you're going to know if they're must-haves, and they're going to be pretty adamant about it. So don't try to convince them otherwise, because all you're going to be doing is wasting your own time, because they're going to be. Dining
You're
rooms.
gonna be frustrated too with you
You're not listening to me.
You're not listening.
Right.
Like, why are you doing this? Yeah.
Exactly. Or if you really try to push your own listings on them too.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really big buzzkill. Seriously. And I see it happen all the time because, you know, the agent wants to sell their own listings and they feel like, well, they can get over that or they can get over that. They don't. If it's a must-have, it's a must-have. So, you know, that's why it's so important to go to MLS. But formal dining room, it's something to talk about because a lot of people are getting away from that whole formal dining room. But every once in a while, I get a client that one day out of the year, and it's a big day, it's called Christmas. And they have 45 people over. And they will not give up that formal dining room because of that one day. Now, in my eyes, I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense. You're going to heat that one room for one day a year. You're going to decorate that room, but it's a big deal for them. It's not my formal dining room, so it's not my job to rationalize why they want or don't want something. Okay, so the formal dining is a big deal to them. Listen to that and hear with their body language that that's going to be something that's going to kill the deal if it's not there. So don't show houses without formal dining rooms. So. So getting our clients on 8-18, bringing your buyers to the decision. And this is kind of interesting how they kind of talk about it, but it really shows you the process or the timeline from going from the lead of the houses they're interested in, the appointments, the agreements, the contracts, the closing, and of course the money aspect of bringing it to closing. This is really important, and Tracy brought that up about, you know, the stats of the house that they're buying. You know, when do those kind of play into that timeline? You know, some people do it at the first initial showing, or if they've showed interest in a house, they'll bring them along. I'm a two-step girl, I always have been. You know, unless there's multiple offers on a house, but even then, remember the listing agent's working for the seller, so it's in the seller's best interest to wait if there's multiple offers coming in. So a lot of times it's just a communication issue. Where if I know we have a house that they're really interested in, I will call them after my appointment and say, you know, Mr. Realtor, Miss Realtor, my clients are solid, they're really strong purchasers, we're gonna come in with a higher EMD, they're gonna be committed to renting on this house, but I'm not gonna be meeting with them until tomorrow. Now, he doesn't, or she doesn't need to know I'm showing them more houses, you know, but I'm communicating, is that gonna be a problem? That's my script. Is that going to be a problem? Do you already have multiple offers, and are you sitting down with your seller prior to me having the opportunity to write an offer on this house? And they'll tell you yes or no. You know, and what it does is it holds them committed too, because you know, I don't know if you've been in that situation yet where you call and you got an offer like, oh, we already had 5 and they've accepted 1. Well, why is that? We always, and I always hear, well, why didn't you tell me? It's not their job to tell you. Okay? It's your job to know what's going on with that house. Okay, so, and people go back and forth with that. I'm the listing agent. I'm very involved with my showings and people that, you know, if we got multiple offers, if I know I have a couple more showings going through, I will personally call those agents and say, hey, just want to let you know you're showing the house at 8 o'clock, and I have multiple offers. We're going to wait through your showing because I work for the seller. It's to our seller's best interest. Right. The only reason why it wouldn't be is if for some reason you're trying to take unfair advantage over your seller and one of the offers is your own. Seriously, it's the only reason why you would not wait for multiple offers. So it depends on what side of that coin you're working and how you do your business. I do my business. Whoever I work for, I'm 110% committed to set them up for success. If I'm representing the seller, we're going to try to get as many offers as we possibly can, and then I'm going to pin every single offer against each other to get the most amount of money from the most committed buyer, because that's what sets my seller up for success. So as a buyer's agent, you want to have that same relationship with your client, which is to set them up with success, provide the highest attributes about them and why they're the most committed purchaser, as well as is not pushing them to the point of having to make a decision because there's multiple offers out there, unless you absolutely have to. And the only way to do that is to call the listing agent and have communication. Now, of course, give me an objection. I know they're out there. Listing agent doesn't call me back. Then you keep calling. You ask for the front desk, get a hold of this agent. They still can't get a hold of the agent. You call their broker. Why? Because if you have to push your buyer to write an offer because you can't find somebody, I would rather push my industry than my client. And I do that. If you don't return my call, you know, there's a reason why you're not returning my call. And I want to know why. You know, so those are the things that I do to make sure that I set my purchaser up to you know, to make the decision in their time frame, but yet and also participate in the marketplace. Because right now, I don't know if you guys realize this, but there's still multiple offer situations out there. If the house is priced right, it sells very quickly. Average days on market is still under 30 days. Ladies and gents, that's very quick. So that means when you're showing a house, you have an opportunity probably at 48 hours if you're going to write on it or not. And sometimes even at 48 hours, unless you've really communicated with that listing agent, it's gone. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to understand that process and still be able to put your buyer through this decision-making process. Because no matter what, if you do this decision-making process in a week or 2 days, if the buyer's comfortable and confident in what their decisions they're making, you've done a good job. So you just got to kind of know that process. So getting back to the information that Tracy shared with us before, I usually have that on my second showing. Not that I'm a tree hugger, but what Tracy does is very time consuming. And she's very committed though as well. And she may be even more strategic on the houses that she shows, that she can actually do that, and it might be better for her clients doing it that way. So once again, not a bad idea, actually a really good idea. It sets her up for success of getting the purchase contract wrote, but she also is doing all of her due diligence ahead of time and probably not showing as many houses as maybe an unexperienced agent is doing. So I don't want new agents out there running stats on every house that you show. Not to say that that's not good to run for a neighborhood, because it is good to know your marketplace. And that's why when you're first in this business, they'll say how many toured. Why? Because if you tour 5 to 10 houses in a certain marketplace, you're gonna know. You're gonna know what information. Days on market. Because you got the MLS sheets as you saw, you know. You're also gonna know price point. Because, I don't know if you guys realize this, but real estate's not rocket science. You don't have to have a mechanical engineer degree to be successful in this. I mean, look at me. Successful agents in this business come from shapes, sizes, we all look differently. Some have no hair, some have a lot of hair, some have big hair, some, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It's all about how you master the systems. The faster you master your systems and you're persistent and consistent with it, you're going to be successful in this business. So getting into the marketplace and understanding what's going on in your marketplace is going to set you guys up to be that industry expert. So it's also going to show you the easiest thing about our industry, which is what I was trying to get at, which is price and conditions sell real estate. That's it. If the condition doesn't warrant the price, it doesn't sell. The condition warrants the price, it sells. So one of two things has to happen. This is a conversation obviously on the listing end that, you know, I have when I'm listing property is that, you know, you either put a $30,000 kitchen in or reduce the price. That's how this works, because everything around you has newer kitchen, you know. Unless you're gonna put $10,000 in landscaping because you have no curbside appeal, the houses that are selling faster than yours for more money have curbside appeal. And you're not gonna know that unless you're in the marketplace and you're seeing what's selling and what isn't selling and what price is being, you know, sought after for a neighborhood. I just went to a listing appointment, just to give you an idea of how vulnerable our market is. Went to a listing appointment 2 weeks ago, they just weren't ready to list. They're gonna list with me, I know that. But they weren't ready to list that night. And so I kind of gave them a honey-do list, and so I went out last week and I purposely reran the comps just to see if it made a difference. There was actually a $10,000 difference in price point. Just in their neighborhood. I mean, so that's why it's so important to understand the marketplace that you're in. And so by doing what Tracy does, that's what she's setting herself up for. She knows. So if that's what it takes for you to be successful and understand and be able to have a conversation with a buyer that says, just to let you know, we're gonna go through 5 houses in this neighborhood, and I did the research. Houses in this neighborhood are selling in 7 days from the time that they're placed on the market. What is that telling your purchaser?
Make that decision.
I'm not rushing you to make a decision. I'm just giving you the information that says if we find a house in this neighborhood that meets your criteria, we're gonna have to be in a position to make a decision or the house is moving on. It's not to rush you, it's just to say, we have to decide that yes or no, this is the house we wanna go through when we go through it, and then do our due diligence within 24 hours if we're gonna put an offer in place. Not rushing, just letting them know and setting that expectation, because if you don't do that, and they turn around on the 3rd visit because they're still in the mindset that they're in a marketplace of 45 days, and they say, well, we want to write an offer on 1, 2, 3 Main Street, and you're like, I went pending. How are they going to feel? Why didn't you tell me? Because it's always your fault. You know that, right? It's always your fault if for some reason they don't get the house. Why? Because you didn't educate them. And it truly is your fault because you didn't set them with the correct expectations. It goes through here about overcome a buyer reluctance. You always can back out later. Yes or no? What are your thoughts on that statement on 8-20? We just talked about this.
I would encourage that. Ever.
I mean, it's, yeah, no, I would never.
One of the things that's so critical to understand is you have to know that this is the house, okay? Some agents will say, well, you know what, we have the inspection period, you know, if you have cold feet. Only say that if it's really something not important. I mean, if it's a floor plan issue, don't write the offer. That just means they haven't gone through enough houses yet. And that's the part of the process where, are you setting the buyer up for success or are you setting yourself up for success? It can't be one side or the other. It has to be a blend of both. It has to be a win-win for both of you. And the only way that's going to happen is if you look out for the client's needs and listen to what they're looking for, as well as represent based off of that your plan of action moving forward. So if you know that basement, it goes right back to the same philosophy, you know that basement's a must-have, then show houses with basements. Don't not show houses with basements. It's just that. So once again, try not to get in that perception of, oh my gosh, I've already showed them 20 houses, I gotta find them a house. That's not their fault. That fault lies back on you for not doing your due diligence, or not, like Ray had mentioned in the beginning of the class, is that you didn't have the buyer consultation with them. You know, you got to find out exactly what's going on, take control, and educate them on the process that sets them up for success as well. What if prices drop? You know, a lot of people will talk about interest rates. I do as well. You know, if they've locked in, you have to know and understand that with your lender of where they're at. 8-22, I don't want to make an offer because I don't like the carpet. Good objection?
No. So stupid.
I mean,
It's a common objection.
It's a common objection, it is.
Paint on the carpet, on the floor.
What was that, Ray?
we'll ask the seller for a carpet allowance.
But what if there's 5 offers in place? Is that a question you're asking the seller?
If there's 5 offers in place,
Have a good carpet guy to refer him to get an idea of the price tag.
Script, great script for this. There's 5 offers in place. The conversation I have with my buyers is, do you like the floor plan? Because I want you to make a quick call, because my vendor for carpeting will take my call instantly or call me back within 10-15 minutes. Let's find out how much it's going to cost. Because sometimes their perception of replacing carpeting is different than the actual reality of the carpet. Because as buyers, we always put a higher value on it.
In a lot of cases, there's hardwood under them too.
Good point. Just to be clear about that is, don't tell them there's hardwood underneath there unless you know positively that there's hardwood underneath there. And the only way to do that is to pull up the carpeting, and you gotta be careful about that. So, but you're right, a lot of these houses that were built in the 60s have hardwood. The bungalows have hardwood. Go ahead.
There's not typically any tack strips around where the registers are. So
Right.
if you pull the registers up,
You can see on the corner, so it's a great.
Or
great-
closets, they don't always put carpet in the closet, so you check the bedrooms.
And the reason why, he's mentioning that is because hardwood people love it. They do. And for some reason, you can refinish a hardwood floor less expensive than to replace carpeting. But once again, educating them and getting them up to speed as to what truly is reality on the cost will set them up for a better offer situation. Now, let's say there isn't any offers on the table. Would you still do that? Absolutely. Because once again, you're going to put it in perspective, like Ray said, maybe even ask for a seller concession at that point. We have buyers out there that need money. They can ask for up to 6% with FHA for seller concessions. Not a very good conversation to have when there's multiple offers on the table, because it makes them look vulnerable. But if there isn't offers on the table and they need the money, then you can be a little bit more aggressive on that. So if it's for seller concessions for financing or seller concessions for carpeting, it's still money off the deal, and it's facilitating the terms that are going to, to help the purchaser in the end, which is who you represent. What happens if you really strike out? What would put you in a situation where you would strike out?
What would put you there? Several things.
Give me one.
You're not doing your due diligence.
Perfect. I never strike out.
There's another scenario where the husband and the wife, if it is a couple, they are not on the same page. So sometimes there has to be a reconvening of the parties
Rally the wagons.
to go through the must-haves and to kind of play peacemaker, because there isn't a reason why you shouldn't be able to find something.
Tracy brings up a valid point. Not only are you a real estate agent, but you're also a marriage counselor. I built houses where I ended up having to resell the new construction house because they couldn't make it through it. You know, obviously there were issues that got them into this before building a house, but sometimes it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. It just happens. And so I say that with a smile on my face because I'm kind of joking and saying, well, you're also a marriage counselor and a psychiatrist, and, you know, whatever you need to be, therapist, whatever. But, you know, Tracy brings up a valid point, which is sometimes they're not on the same page. Or let's say the husband, I see this a lot, the husband will say to me, I don't need to be there, I got a busy schedule. Do you still show the houses? No. I do not. You both have to be there, you both have to be committed, you both are buying this together. And it's not because I'm trying to control you or not to say that your schedule isn't busy, because I get busy, I totally get busy. But all that means is that you're gonna have to look at your time blocking to find out when you can make this a priority, because I'm gonna work with you on my schedule. No matter what that time is, I'm committed to that time. And I'll make sure that I'm there for that. So you want both the parties there as well. So Tracy brings up, you know, a valid point about spouses, you know, or significant others, partners, because it's a decision-making process that they're making together, so you need to be there. And I don't care what they say, doesn't matter where I live, just give me the address. They're lying. They're not telling you the truth. No one wants to just get the address and show up the day the moving people are there. They want to see the house. They want to visualize where they're going to be at, and so they're part of that process. So if you set yourself up, you won't strike out. So like he mentioned, due diligence. You have to go through this process. Because if you don't, and you try to reinvent the wheel, which I have no idea why you would do that, but if you so choose to and feel that you have a better idea of how to do this, all that does is add more time to the process. And like I said, this isn't rocket science. You know, it's pretty simple. It's, you know, we try to complicate it. And that's what we're trying to avoid is trying to come up with your system that you can personalize, that you know that you're making the right decisions, you feel comfortable in your skin so you can service the client. Go ahead.
In the case of like the husband, say for example, is very busy or not necessarily a meeting, but say for example, he travels a lot. And, you know, time is very scarce with him to meet. And then he just wants the wife to do the first round. And then she can narrow it down to a couple of homes. Would you actually take the wife to see round one of?
Only time I've ever done that was when I used to have a huge client with relocation. And one spouse moved here and one was still at home, okay? But I had a plan for that, and I did not do it any other way than this way, which was, we're gonna send you videos of the house. And I just wanna make sure that we're all on the same page, that you are comfortable writing an offer off of a videotape, okay? Or, are you committed to giving me a date that you're coming in to see the house that we're gonna write an offer on? Okay, and once again, that's my system. Is it a good system? I don't know, it worked for me, but what it is doing is it's setting expectations on the upfront during the buyer consultation, so we're all on the same page. We all know what is expected of all of our different job responsibilities, but more importantly, it's setting them up for success as well. Because it's making them think about things that they normally probably haven't thought about in this process. And people change their minds because you haven't given them all the scenarios that potentially could happen. Why? How many times does a person buy a house in a lifetime? How many times does a person actually sell a house in a lifetime? Not as many as what we do. We do it for a job. This is what we do every day. So we know every scenario. We've unfolded or experienced, or at least heard about someone experiencing something that we've never seen before. So you need to share those scenarios with them. And I do, I share. You know, the last relocation clients I worked with, this is what happened. You know, and we lost out on the house because we didn't have this conversation with them. Are you committed to coming here, you know, next month or in 2 weeks or whatever that is? Or are you okay, comfortable writing on, as long as your wife or your husband says that it's okay or your partner's okay, based off of a video? And I've done virtual tours for buyers before that gives them a better perspective of the house. And like I said, and I commend Corinne here at KW because she does such a great job on pictures. Man, I'm telling you what, sometimes I'm wondering if she does them just so she doesn't show houses. We're gonna just buy them sight unseen. Because there's some really, I mean, if you get someone that's talented, that really sets her listings up for selling, you see a lot of the house just off of the pictures. Go ahead, Tracy.
Well, just to piggyback on that, for my listings, I do professional photography and interactive photo tour, so that would work perfectly for a relo spouse. They can actually stand in the kitchen and know that they're facing the family room and what that looks like. So it almost walks them through the home. But I have a question, and that is about striking out. Some agents in our company say that they will do more than other buyers' agents. If they aren't able to find the person something that's on market, they'll actually door knock or find off-market properties for that person to buy. My question is, do you offer that, and what's the strategic thinking behind that? Because they could really say, oh, well, you should just go out door knocking because I don't like any of these.
So a couple questions and a couple comments on what you said. If I don't answer them all, let me know, because
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
First thing is that you brought up a good scenario about the virtual tours that you do. I've had clients that Skype is their big thing if it's a traveling spouse.
Right.
I just had a family that he's retiring from the CIA, and I'm selling their house, and they're turning around to buy, and he's overseas, you know, and he's retiring. That's one reason why he's retiring. But Skype is their technology. So to get them to that level, I said, well, do you guys want to Skype at the house before we write an offer? I mean, because we can do that as long as we know, we'll tell you, hey, we've narrowed it down. We're going to go through the last 3 houses, and this is the house that we really think it is. And we Skyped, you know, and that's where he was comfortable writing the offer without seeing the property. So understanding and knowing what technology they use as well, you know, is a great indicator as well as of doing your due diligence and listening to the client. To comment on you on door knocking, if I can't find a purchaser a house because of limited inventory, I'm already prospecting, okay? So I use every buyer as a reason to prospect. If I call for sale by owner, I'm calling for sale by owners in areas where I'm representing buyers or buyers' agents working in that area for me. And I'm saying to them, we have buyers in this area that are looking and we haven't found a house for. This may be a house that they may be interested in. Do you mind giving me 5 or 10 minutes? I can come over and have a discussion with you. So it doesn't mean that that buyer is going to look at that house, but I do have a buyer in that area. So when agents say that, it's usually because that's part of their prospecting. They may be prospecting for sale by owners. That may be their door knocking technique. You know, they door knock in areas where they show houses. Why? So they can use that as a way to grow their business. So to answer your question, absolutely I do that. Because if I have a buyer in Royal Oak that I haven't found a house for, guess what areas I'm calling it? Royal Oak. I have a buyer in this area that we haven't found a house for. Your house might be that house. Have you thought about selling? Well, no. In a scale from now into the next 2 years, what are you looking for? I mean, is there any opportunity that you might think about selling? Well, you know, no, but my neighbor next door. Oh, really? What is exactly they say? So it opens up that conversation that one makes you feel more comfortable because you have a buyer in the area. They feel more comfortable because you're not calling to pressure them to sell. You're just calling to say, hey, I got a buyer in the area. Everybody loves to help somebody. They just do. That's how we are. So a lot of times it's kind of just utilizing what you're already doing to expand your business and prospecting. So that's a really, really good point. I don't think I would have ever covered that today, Tracy, so I appreciate that. That's huge.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions before the end? Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, so kind of on Tracy's point about the husband and wife not being on the same page, when do you let a buyer go? Because I have a client, a couple, a wife and a husband, that when I sat down with them for the buyer's consult, they were completely on the same page, loved me, wanted to find a condo, ranch. Well, since then, in the last 3 months, it seems like it's been, he's completely, he's shut down. Like he just doesn't, I don't think he's ever wanted to really move. I think he's just doing it for her. In fact, he's even told me that in emails. And she's more the person that wants to move and he doesn't. And so nothing satisfies him. he's always, there's always a reason.
Are they living in the same house right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
But they don't communicate at all.
Right.
At all. So it's wasting so much of my time. I feel like I'm focusing so much where I could be, I have time that I could be focusing on A buyers where I'm really wasting a lot of time on them. So when do I say, listen?
That's a great scenario and great questions. So if that ever happens and now you're 3 months in the process, usually at 3 weeks, you will have already realized that something isn't right, if you haven't found him somewhere. And so bring him back in for another consultation. Get him back on your territory where you feel confident and have a conversation with him and say, I'm here to do what's best for you guys, okay? When we started off, these were our expectations, these were our must-haves. Now it's kind of changed. We received emails and all that stuff. We just say, it seems to me, being the outsider, that things may have changed. So let's talk about that a little bit. Where do you see yourself in the next 30 to 60 days? It's hard for a spouse to lie in that situation. Well, you know what? I just don't see us buying. Oh, okay, perfect. Well, why don't you see yourself buying? I guarantee you, all you have to say is, where do you see yourself in the next 30 to 60 days, and let them talk, okay? Don't involve in the two-way communication between the two of them, because they may be living in the same house, but someone is not communicating appropriately, or they haven't had time, or someone hasn't put them in the correct environment for them to feel like they can honestly share, okay? I did that one time and I didn't realize that one was thinking about divorcing. I just had to figure out what was going on because I knew something wasn't adding up, and ironically that's what came out of that meeting. And it was the hardest meeting I've ever been through, but at the end of the day, I wasn't showing them houses in 3 months. I knew that there was something not right, and that wasn't my intention, but until you got them on common soil, to know and understand, okay, this is a safety zone. We just want to find out what's best for everybody involved. I tell that story kind of nervousness because that's not my intention, but that's what came out. There was something not right. And all right, so it takes me another 2 weeks before one person gets enough gumption to tell the other person that this isn't what they want. I know gas is cheap, but come on. My time isn't, so we just want to make sure that we all are on the same playing field. Because at the end of the day, and it's okay, I've got clients that are on B and C. I've got a lead from my son's school, Detroit Country Day, and he just got a promotion, and she's a teacher out in Howell, and she wants to move. He is okay if they find the right house. And so I have her on the best search engine with my phone app looking at houses, okay? And when they narrow it down, or I come across a house that meets their must-haves because they want something unique, then we'll go see it. But I'm not showing them on a weekly basis a house or houses, because I'm not driving a Ferrari when they're driving a Yugo, okay? They're 2 different types of cars, 2 different... You don't want to be in that position because you're never, ever, ever going to sell a house. All you're going to do is be investing a lot of time and gas, as well as adding to their frustration level. Okay, so you have to understand what type of buyer you're working with. But once again, that's a buyer consultation conversation. When I had my buyer consultation conversation with that couple, I knew they rated themselves. They were looking for a house that's unique and in a price range of Franklin Village that's very hard to find a house in. And they aren't ready to move until they find their house. And so, they rated themselves, and I know where to allocate my resources for them. So, all right, aim high, customer service focus. Obviously, here at Keller Williams, we want to focus on certain things. So this is kind of a hit list. Paperwork, obviously map, first aid kit, flashlight, level, tape measure, digital camera. Pretty good list of things to have. Paper goods, tissues, toilet paper, office supplies, umbrellas, beverages, snacks, entertainment for kids. I love this list because I remember the days where we had the MLS in my trunk, and you had to come to me to get the listings. Right? I was the controller of the info. Great position to be in, right? Not really, but at the time it felt really good. So I remember having a relocation come in, and I had my big expedition, and they always brought their kids, and so I had a little cooler, and I had these little bags that had coloring books and stuff like snacks in it and stuff to entertain the kids and things. You know, is it still necessary? Might be, and there's still opportunities where, you know, once she asked me that question, do you do that? Is that something that you offer where you go above? Absolutely, I still talk about doing that stuff. I may not do it as often as I used to, but does it create a competitive advantage for me? Does it show someone that I'm committed? They may not need that type of service, but the fact that I share it with them sets me up as having a competitive advantage, and I'm willing to go the distance for them. Because at the end of the day, the customer just wants to feel like they are your only client. That's it. They just want to know that customer service is rated as a top priority for you and your business. So sometimes in the buyer consultation, I'll talk about the things, you know, that I've done in the past or things I do to help my clients and their needs. And then I say, is there anything special that I need to know about you? You know, what are they doing? They're going to tell you what their expectations are, what they're expecting of you. So recap, obviously this is one of the things that I want to make sure that, you know, we do before we part, is understanding and knowing the process. What is the first thing that I highly suggest you do when you have a buyer sign home?
When you have a buyer,
Say
what?
that again.
Someone calls you and says, I want to go see the house at 123 Main Street that you have listed. What do you do first?
Good, come in for a buyer consultation.
Perfect. What do they say? I absolutely want to see the house.
There's a process I go through, and this is step one.
Perfect. And the other thing that I will tell them is I will guarantee you that since I'm the listing agent, I'm in control when the offers come in. So even though you want to see the house, I guarantee you, you're not going to miss out on getting the house. You know, because that's the reason why they want to. Or let's say they call you on someone else's listing, what would you say?
Have you been pre-approved?
Always take them back to the buyer consultation. There are some situations that I don't run the buyer consultation, I kick myself. But I have the buyer consultation usually right after that first showing. Because some buyers, they just, you know, it's hard to get them, but they send you the pre-approval or the cash. I will sometimes go, but it's very limited. Like I feel really confident they were a referral from one of my partners or something like that. I just, you know, the house was a hot house on the market. I was afraid. And I called the agent, they said there was offers on it already, then I have to get them in. Those types of scenarios, you gotta modify from it, but the objective is to take them back around to a buyer consultation. And I say that to them, you know what, I understand you wanna get in the house, but there's a process that benefits you to make sure that we set you up for the successful opportunity to purchase this, which many times means how much you pay for that house. You know, this is how we do it. But what I will do is I'm going to call the listing agent, find out if there's any offers on it. Is there any way that we may potentially lose the house? Because if that's the case, then, you know, we're going to know that instantly. And it's going to set you up too for the buyer consultation, because if you need to make need to make a decision on this house, you're going to want to know that going before you ever enter that house, because you may not even be ready to buy a house today. You know, so why are we going to be looking at a house that we have to make an offer in the next 10 hours?
Yeah.
You know, once again, you're setting that expectation. That's the second thing I want you guys to remember, is that setting that expectation with that purchaser. Once you listen to them, then get your plan of attack in your head of how you're going to set them up for success, and then talk about it. Okay, this is what we're going to accomplish. And I always use the famous line. You guys can take it because it's not mine. It's not trademarked. But first time meeting me, it's feeling like you're drinking out of a fire hose. I get it. I don't need you to know everything. I don't need you to remember everything I say today. I just need you to have enough information to be dangerous. Because as we go through this, I will constantly remind you and walk you through what the next steps are. But if I tell you what all the steps are now, and I set that expectation with you, when I say it to you the second or the third or the fourth time, it's going to feel a little bit more comfortable because you've already heard it 1, 2, and 3. And that's going to set you up to be more successful. It's going to set you up with all of your attributes at the highest level, so we get the most amount of house for the least amount of purchase price. And that really is, in their mind, their objective. They want the 4 bedrooms, the 3 baths, the 2,500 square feet for $100,000. If that's what they're looking for. They want a big house, they want it for a lower price, you know. So we always want to, you know, keep that into perspective. Okay? So we have the next session coming up, which is Session 9, negotiating win-win agreements.
At 9?
I'm sorry?
That's tomorrow morning at 9, right?
It is, yep. So before we go, I want to make sure that we remind a few things. What's the number one thing I want to remind you? Has nothing to do with buyers.
10-4.
Get your database.
Perfect, perfect. Yay, you guys get the gold stars today. Database, add people to your database. Know what that number is. How many people is that a week? What does it look like? If you don't know what that tangible number is, how do you know what you're striving for? You know, for me, it's 10 a day. I don't go to bed unless I have 10. So unless I'm gonna be in Meyer Thrifty Acres that's open 24 hours asking for people's contact information, was kind of a little freaky. I don't wanna be in that environment. But if I don't have 10 to add to my database, that's what my world looks like. You know, but I'm committed to what I have on my dream board. No matter what, I will always accomplish my goals because I want the quality of life that I want. So that means if I don't do my job, I'm at Myers at 2 a.m. trying to find out people to put on my database. Seriously. And I say that jokingly, but are you guys committed? I want to know that you guys are committed. And why are you committed? What's the next thing? Prospect. You need to contact at least 10 people. You need to get on the phones and call people. Okay, if it's a vendor, if it's your mom for day 2, I mean, whatever it takes. I need you talking on the phones with somebody about real estate, okay? Because it's the only way you're gonna do it. I did it when Ken Kozak was teaching. I was here just looking in on the session, you know, because I love Ken, I love to listen to him, you know, and when he got us on the phones, I was like, yeah. Why? Because it's a great exercise. 2, it got me on the phones. It got me leads that I normally would not have gotten. That's exciting. You know, and I've been in this business how long? It rekindled everything. So as much as you don't want to get on the phones, it rekindles your spirit of what we're doing in this business. So get on the phones with at least 10 people. Follow up. If you've met some people, added people to your database, get those postcards out. I know one of the top agents talks about they have this huge stack of Keller Williams note cards, you know. If you haven't ordered those, Dollar Store, they have thank you notes, $1 for 10. It's really super inexpensive. You personally put your business card in them and stuff like that. And then of course, know your market. Look at 10 houses this week. Pick an area that you want to be in, because guess what? If you guys know, it's pretty powerful when you go through 10 houses and you can say, you know what, average days in the market in this area is 15. Houses on the average, they're 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,500 square feet are selling for $125,000, and that includes the colonial 2-stall attached garages. Would you want to look at houses with me?
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Seriously.
Yeah.
You know, and that literally takes just getting through 10 houses. You know, and if you're doing that, not all agents are doing that. So you're already creating that type of a competitive advantage. Okay, last 2 things, ahas. Give me your aha moments and write them down if you want to, the 3 aha moments from the power session. Wow.
One was.
Thank you.
I got a lot, though.
To know your average and target number of houses to show, and to work hard to get things going and concluding in that time frame. But also, one thing you said that I didn't ever think to do is add, if you have 2 days of showings, add the favorite from the first set of showings onto the second set of showings. I never thought to do that, so that was aha.
Yay. Anyone else?
I know we talk about the buyer consultation, but it's just not a single folded reason to do the buyer consultation. It's more than one reason that the buyer consultation accomplished. The aha moment for me on that is that it's more than just, you know, it builds confidence. You're educating the buyer. It's like it's multi-fold when you really look at the big picture. It's going to save you time in the long run. It's going to save buyer time. It's just important.
Well, and you want to know if they're a career shopper or not. And if they're a career shopper, they're not buying. So you don't wanna work with people like that, seriously. And they're out there, guys, gals. There's career shoppers out there that they like to look at houses. They just always say, if I found the right house, I'll buy. You know, so the buyer consultation does set you up to know that it screens themselves. Your aha moment?
My aha moment was the buyer consultation, of course, print my informations and have both people there, husband and wife.
The printing of the information, I didn't spend as much time on it as I'd like to, but I do create a CMA for the house that we write an offer on. I pretend that I'm listing that house, which pulls up the comps not only on the active of what's in the marketplace that we've already seen to remind them of what we've gone through, but as well as the pendings, days on market, so it shows how many days. That's going to determine, obviously, what we're going to be putting on our suggested price on our contract, as well as what the solds are. Solds, I only go back 90 days because our market is a little bit different right now. And in some markets where the days on market are 10, 15 days, you should be only probably going about 30 to 60 days. So knowing and understanding what your days on market is really critical to know what comparables you're pulling up, so it's more accurate for them. So, and it sets them up for reality as well, because obviously, you know, we're not in a marketplace where we can go in, you know, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 lower than list price. It's just, that's not the market that we're in. So what it really does is have a conversation with your purchasers through facts. So you're not the bad guy, you know, through facts that say this is what houses have sold for just in the last 30 to 45 days in this marketplace. So, you know, you're setting them up for success to be able to actually buy the house that they want. Because their dream home price still is an indicator. They still want it for less than what they end up offering it for. And so my special tidbit on that, maybe an aha moment for you that I'll add to, is that if there's multiple offers, I always do an odd number. So if the house is listed for $99,900, we'll go in at $100,112. You know, why? I have no idea. I just know it's more than what it's listed for, but it sometimes spins it for the seller that they're committed. You know, because they're doing something different than what everyone else is doing, and so that must mean they like it more. And if they don't get that through my video or my cover page on the letter, they're getting it on the sale price. So I don't leave, you know, any stone unturned in that process. All right, last thing before you leave, if there's any last minute questions for me, is your evaluation. Give me all fives or I'm gonna come find you. Just kidding. Don't even put your name on it, because constructive criticism, we want to make sure that we're making these classes where they're going to impact you guys. Oh, you already got one? Oh, perfect.
Because I already have it.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
What's the course title?
Finding and showing.
Okay.
Isn't it nice?
Now it shows there's a 1 p.m.
It's freezing.
Thank you.